Luna here, and today we're here to find out, can you beat Oblivion without healing? I know other challenge runners have done this one, but it seems fun and I want to do my own version. Hopefully it ends up being different enough to be fun for you too. Anyway, rules. We can't restore health. No healing spells, consumables, wayshrines, or blood fountains. Restoring Magicka stamina and attributes and curing diseases is allowed. Waiting, sleeping, and fast traveling are not allowed unless we're at full health. No cheats, exploits, or gameplay mods. Official DLC is allowed. Before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to thank our channel members. In the You Broke the Tip Jar tier, we have Ginger Knight and Forgotten God. In the bigger tip jar tier, we have K Plays Music and Games, and in the tip jar tier, we have Jack1165, Ragnarok, Burge117, Tox, Ace of Kestrels, and Bwezu. Thank you all for your support. We're doing this run in Classic Oblivion because in the remaster, we'd passively heal outside of combat. We're allowed to wait and sleep at full health because if they don't cause us to gain health, I don't see the point in forbidding them. This distinction will allow us to reach level 2 so we can get a Daedric artifact without confronting Umbra, provided we complete the tutorial and reach level 2 damageless. This run will show the tutorial as a result, and editing Luna has likely put footage of it on instead of character creation. I'll still cover character creation though, don't worry. Endurance and health fortifications are fine, but we need to keep in mind that we'll lose the max and current health they provide if they're removed, meaning we'll keel over if losing the fortification puts us below 1 health. That's actually why they're allowed. In some games, we'd only lose max health when we lost a fortification, which would make fortifications a roundabout way of healing, but since Oblivion removes current and max health from lost fortifications, we can't abuse them that way. This means fortifications from enchantments may prove useful, but temporary ones from powers, spells, and potions will only help if we can keep them up. I considered picking Breton for their 50% magic resistance because magic immunity would be great, but mundane rings won't appear until level 20. While we could reach high levels easily by picking major skills that can be raised out of combat, I doubt it'd be worth it because enemies would be far tougher and physical damage would still be a problem. Of course, if we also got 100% damage reflection to go with that magic immunity, we'd be immune to everything except bows. But I don't want to do that since I can tell you exactly how that would go. We'd get through the tutorial damage list and grind to level 25 while making potions to sell. Then we'd visit alchemists for expert apparatuses, flour, and strawberries for damage reflection potions. With 4 of those, the most we can stack in Classic Oblivion, and a damage reflection spell, we could reach 100% damage reflection and use it to get the Escutcheon of Coral and beat the Gatekeeper to reach Errol for the Ring of the Iron Fist, Mundane Ring, and an Amulet of Swords or Axes. After that, the run would be over because we'd be immune to almost everything at all times, and frankly, there aren't very many archers as part of the main quest. We won't rush for Chameleon for the same reasons. We'll stick to stealth archery instead. If you want to see the high-level version of this run in the future, let me know in the comments, but I think the low-level one will be more interesting. Anyway, melee combat is the last place we want to be, so we don't care about strength. We want agility for bows, intelligence for magic, and speed for running away. More endurance will give us room to mess up since it'll give us most, if not all, the health we'll have for the entire run. We'll pick the Atronach Birth Sign for its spell absorption that gives us a 50-50 chance to negate spells, which makes willpower pointless due to stunted Magicka. With all that in mind, which characters are we considering? While Breton's 50% magic resistance and extra Magicka is still tempting, ideally we don't want to get hit at all, it wouldn't help against physical damage, and we'd only have 60 health to work with. Their agility and speed are also poor. High Elves take extra elemental damage and either have poor speed or poor endurance depending on gender, and Imperials specialize in personality, so both are out. Male Argonians have 40 intelligence and 50 agility and speed, but 30 endurance. They lack powers and the utility of their resistances is questionable. Orcs have 50 endurance, the most we can get from our race, but 35 agility and 30 speed and intelligence. Their 25% magic resistance makes up for this somewhat, but their berserk power isn't great for non-melee builds. Now for the contenders. Male Dunmer have 40 intelligence, agility, and endurance, 50 speed, and 75% fire resistance. Female Khajiit have 50 agility and 40 speed, intelligence, and endurance. Their Night Eye is also mildly useful for stealth builds. Male Nords have 50 endurance as well as 40 agility and speed, but only 30 intelligence. Their 50% frost resistance is more situational than Dunmer's fire resistance, as more low-level enemies use fire magic. Red Guards also have 50 endurance, 40 agility and speed, and only 30 intelligence. Their adrenaline rush raises speed and agility, though. Male Wood Elves arguably have the best attributes for this run. Never thought I'd say that, but here we are, with 40 intelligence and endurance and 50 agility and speed, but they lack useful powers and resistances. For me, it came down to the Dunmer's fire resistance, which would help against scamps, as well as the siege engine and the turrets in Oblivion Plains, and the Red Guard's adrenaline rush. While we don't care much about strength, and the endurance and health from adrenaline rush would only help if it got us into the Temple of the One, the 50 agility and speed might be useful. However, that requires me to remember to use Adrenaline Rush, and I often forget about once-a-day powers, so I went with a Dunmer with the Atronach birth sign. For our class, we specialize in stealth. I considered magic since we'll use conjuration and destruction, but marksman and sneak will be useful too, and marksman will be harder to raise since we want to avoid combat. Our favorite attributes are endurance and agility, and our major skills are sneak, conjuration, destruction, marksman, athletics, illusion, and mercantile in case we want to buy something that requires journeyman mercantile skill. The rats in the tutorial are annoyingly hard to hit, but our flare spell allows us to deal with them from a distance even before we find a bow. I'm not sure how we'd get through the tutorial damageless otherwise. Maybe with our Ancestor Guardian? We spam flare against the rats because it one-shots them, and I wasn't certain our bow would. We have very low skills because we haven't selected our class yet. The goblins were dicier. Even a sneak attack from our bow didn't take them down, so we had to follow up with our flare spell, but they were easier to hit. The goblin witch took a sneak attack and 2 flare spells, which gave her a chance to send a lightning bolt our way, but we dodged it. I was also paranoid around the traps and the logs we pushed over on a couple goblins because the physics objects love to randomly deal damage if we get too close. Once we meet up with the Emperor again, we leave the fighting to the blades, with one exception: the cultist who assassinates the Emperor. He won't appear until the Emperor proclaims that he can go no further, and the game locks us in place, so we're forced to start the fight far closer to the assassin than I'd like. However, we have enough speed to flee and hide behind Boris. In theory. In practice, Boris is terrible at his job, and the cultists chased us around for some time on the first attempt, and when we turned to cast what I thought was a flare, we cast a heal minor wounds instead. I have no idea how that happened. We swapped it for flare ages ago, and I certainly didn't swap it back. It isn't on our hotkey wheel either. While it could be argued it was fine since we were at full health, I decided to load back to the start of the fight and re-equipped flare to be safe. Besides, we were probably about to get stabbed. Of course, on the second try, Boris caught the cultist and took him down like it was nothing. He also thought we were an agent, which I guess isn't the worst pick, but we've gotten more destruction than marksmen, so I'd have picked Nightblade. Regardless, we make our custom class and head through the sewers. Now that we have apprentice sneak and marksman, we're able to one-shot the goblins easily. I was exceptionally paranoid on the short walk to the Imperial City Market District. We need to stay damageless until we reach level 2, and I should have fast-traveled, but thankfully we didn't run into anything. Once we're in the city, we go through the usual process of looting the crates scattered around and using what we find, plus the loot from the tutorial, as starting capital for our alchemy business. We buy cheap ingredients, mostly food from innkeepers, to make potions to sell. It'll also give us a bit of extra intelligence from all the alchemy skill ups when we level, but I'm not aiming for a perfect level up. I just want to get the level so I can stop worrying about loading back if we get a paper cut. Now that we're in a safe place, we can skip to the level up. As you can see, we're still at max health, and if you don't trust me and think I healed at some point, I doubt there's anything I can do or say to change your mind short of uploading an uncut playthrough almost no one who complained would actually watch, and it'd make editing hell because instead of small chunks of mostly relevant footage, I'd have to sift through tons of trading and pauses where I worked on the script. Anyway, we get to level 2 with Mercantile of all things, and get 5 intelligence, 3 agility, and 2 speed. Now we have 94 max health thanks to the 4 health we got from leveling. While we still have the luxury of fast travel thanks to being at full health, we warp over to Coral and purchase the Summon Clanfear spell. I don't know if we'll get enough conjuration to use it because we'll need Welkin Stones or restore Magicka potions in order to grind magic skills, but if we can ever cast it, it'll turn anything we fight at this level into strawberry jam. We also purchased the more feasible Summon Scamp spell from Edgar's Discount Spells. As for getting Magicka, getting to Master Alchemy and turning the plentiful flax seeds near Skingrad into restore Magicka potions is likely our best option, but we only have Apprentice Alchemy, so for now we need another ingredient to mix them with. I also want a few Welkin Stones on hand for oh crap moments, so we head back to the sewer entrance we escaped from and swim to the nearby Ayleid ruin, Vilvurin. We'll have to get past a handful of bandits, but there's a pile of Welkin Stones not far from the entrance. We picked off the 2 bandits outside first. We could sneak past them, but we may have to lead the bandit leader inside out here to take him down safely, and I didn't want these 2 to back him up. Sadly, the archer spotted us before we could get a sneak attack, and while her ally wandered off instead of joining the fight, it was still stressful. Of all enemy types, archers worry me the most because I find them the hardest to dodge, but thankfully she only got 1 shot before we took her down, and we avoided it. Then we took out her friend with a sneak attack. The first couple bandits inside Vilvurin weren't too bad, as our sneak attacks were either one-shots or left them 1 arrow away from joining their ancestors, but their leader was another story. He was sleeping, and I considered using a dagger, but I didn't want to be close to him if he survived, so we used our bow instead. Unfortunately, he not only survived the shot, he also used a potion to heal himself. In fact, he did that a second time after we stuck a couple more arrows into him and nearly cornered us. By all rights, we should have been hit here, but for some reason he blocked instead of swinging. Thankfully, we were able to take him down after that and claimed a total of 7 Welkin Stones from his room. Looking back, maybe we should have just taken them and let him sleep. We aren't going to risk exploring further because I don't remember there being many Welkin Stones down there, and this is more than enough for now. We're going to pick flowers around Skingrad and Weynon Priory instead. While we're out there, we hand Joffrey the Amulet of Kings since we're likely going to rush the main quest. There are a few items I considered getting, but I think we'll stick to whatever we find, plus a couple items we'll purchase if we can get enough gold. The Hands of the Atronach, which would give us near fire immunity plus resistance to frost and shock, and the Birthright of Astalon for 5 agility and 50 magicka. Most other items either require a higher level or aren't worth the trouble at low levels. I looked at the Weather Ward Circlet, again for fire immunity, and the unique mace, Caliban's Grim Retort, which is one of the best weapons we can get at low levels. They're both in the same location, a mausoleum that can only be accessed as part of the Unfriendly Competition quest. However, that requires us to fend off 2 decently strong melee fighters in close quarters with little or no stealth because I think one of them speaks to us when we enter the mausoleum. While we could survive the fight, I suspect it would cost us a chunk of health unless we had a stronger summon or paralysis. Spell Drinker would increase our odds of absorbing spells, but we'd have to complete a few Mages Guild quests, some of which involve combat, and it'd only increase our spell absorption by 9% at this level. Getting the greater power from the Atronach Stone is far easier. We just have to hike to a spot north of Miscarcand to visit the stone, and then we can raise our spell absorption by 30% for 2 minutes once a day. We may as well rescue Martin since everything else I can think of involves way more combat than it's worth. The guards handle the scamps pouring out of the Oblivion Gate, and we dive in as soon as we see a gap. The Daedra outside the tower aren't too bad. We have a lot of room to work with, and the Deadlands are surprisingly well lit thanks to all the lava. We have a little trouble with the stunted scamp on the rock since our scamp can't aim high enough to hit it and can't find a way up, but we pick it off with our bow, and once we're up on the rock ourselves, we easily turn another stunted scamp on the ground into a pincushion. The tower is trickier. We have less room, it's easy to get stuck on something as we're backpedaling away from opponents, and it's dark. A life detection enchantment might be worthwhile if we happen to find one. There's a rather embarrassing encounter where our bow broke as we were being cornered by a stunted scamp in Dremora who were not at all interested in our summoned scamp, which was stuck on one of the spiky bridges that gives the pathfinding fits. I honestly completely forgot that durability was a thing for a second because I got so used to the remaster constantly shouting at you whenever your equipment is even slightly damaged. It just completely blanked. And then broken bow. We took enough damage from that fiasco that I decided to load back. I admit I've been aggressive with the reloads because I want to stay at full health so waiting and fast traveling are allowed for as long as possible, but I doubt I'll keep this up the whole run. Our spell absorption has also saved us 1 reload so far. The Mythic Dawn attacking Weynon Priory seemed more intent on us than usual. The ones outside the chapel weren't a problem as we can backpedal faster than they can run, but we had to reload once against the ones inside the chapel since one of them charged right at us on the first attempt. I think this is the first time I've done more than mention this fight in passing. On the second attempt, we summoned our scamp as a distraction, which may or may not have helped. The cultists seemed more focused on Joffrey and Martin that time. I'm glad we got through it damageless because I really wanted to be able to fast travel to Cloud Ruler Temple. Almost every time I've walked there with these two, Joffrey somehow gets incredibly lost, and without him, the gates to Cloud Ruler Temple won't open. Fast travel allows us to bypass that entirely. It's time to find all the Culty books in the Imperial City. Thankfully, most of this quest involves running around talking to people, and we can still fast travel to speed things along. The cultist that follows Boris into the basement doesn't cause any problems. We stay stealthed and let Boris handle him. Boris can also deal with the enemies in the sewer on his own at this level, although he walked right into a few mud crabs before he realized they were there. A couple rats also targeted us despite the fact we were sneaking, but Boris took them out in the nick of time in a rare display of competence. The confrontation with Raven Cameron was far rockier. Raven himself is easy enough to remove since we often got 2 sneak attacks on him before he figured out where we were. We chose to provide backup from the walkway above the chamber instead of meeting him ourselves for precisely that reason. Boris usually got a hit or 2 on him as well, and we had an easy finishing shot as he rushed up the stairs towards us. The 2 minions, on the other hand, caused no end of issues. I admit I got greedy trying to get a sneak attack on them as Boris charged in instead of summoning our scamp immediately, making it very likely one of them would target us as soon as the one with the torch got close enough to blow our cover. I didn't want to drop off the walkway because I was worried it'd be just high enough to sprain our ankles, so we kept backing into the small hallway we entered the room through and getting cornered. I don't know why running down the stairs never occurred to me, but somehow we never ran that way. Paralysis poisons or even an oh crap touch spell would probably help in these situations. We certainly have enough gold to get one, so I'll sort that out when we're done here. As it was, we just kept trying, and on the 3rd or maybe 4th attempt, both cultists focused on Boris and our scamp long enough for us to take them down. Before we head to the Mythic Dawn Shrine, which I suspect may be difficult to complete damageless due to the sheer number of enemies, we detour to Breville and purchase the Debilitate spell from Ida Rhaenys, which paralyzes for 3 seconds on touch. If an enemy runs in swinging, it won't save us, but sometimes the AI locks up for a second or 2 after closing in, which would buy us enough time to cast. However, we need 50 illusion skill to cast it, and as I mentioned earlier, magic skill grinding is difficult due to our stunted Magicka and the fact Wayshrines are forbidden. I arguably should have allowed them at full health by the same logic that allows waiting and fast traveling at full health, but for some reason that didn't sit right with me. I don't know why. The inner machinations of my mind are an enigma. It was at this point that I remembered Alien Wells are a thing, and they restore Magicka with no effect on health. It took 3 real-life hours because we had to wait an in-game day with this slow as molasses menu every time we needed the Alien Well to recharge, but we now have 50 illusion and 100 conjuration. More illusion would make our Debilitate spell cheaper to cast, but it's more for emergencies, whereas we will be spamming Clan Fears. With it, the raid on the Mythic Dawn Shrine pretty much plays itself. We're able to one-shot the Acolytes with a sneak attack from our bow, although not the guards. Our spell absorption saves us a second time from a stray lightning bolt from an Acolyte that somehow got behind us, but otherwise there weren't any close calls thanks to our Clan Fear. After that, we deal with the Spies, which is, as usual, nothing. We take out the one near the Doomstone with our Clan Fear, and the other in the Bruma Caverns with a sneak attack. Then it was time to fetch a Daedric artifact, and at this level we had 2 options. Azura's Star, which requires us to slay vampires in close quarters, or the Wabbajack, which only requires theft and talking. Unsurprisingly, we picked the Wabbajack. We got into a shootout with a bandit archer during the hike from Leyawind to the Shrine of Sheogorath, but we got a lucky stagger that allowed us to take him down before he got a shot in. Otherwise, the whole affair was free of danger. Although I was slightly worried one of the flaming dogs would land on us and cause damage, I don't even know if that's possible, and thankfully it didn't happen. Escorting Burd through the Oblivion Gate didn't go so smoothly. The first reload happened when one of the guards ran face first into an arrow intended for a stunted scamp, and of course it removed him from the census and counted as a murder. On the second walk to the tower, we mostly stayed out of combat until they were out of the way. They kept running into Harada roots, and that didn't end well for them. Speaking of, we had to take care to avoid the roots ourselves, as well as the turrets that shoot firebolts if we get near them. Both will attack even if we're undetected. While they wouldn't do much damage, I want to retain the ability to fast travel. Thankfully, this tower doesn't have many traps to worry about. The spiky thing that swings down from the ceiling will hurt if we run into it after the trap is sprung, as Burd is demonstrating, but it's fine as long as we hug the wall. We still have trouble spotting enemies though, and our spell absorption saves us from a stray spell for the third time. The trek to Sancre is largely uneventful. We kept running into deer, which typically spawn in place of an enemy in the wilderness, so we got a bit lucky. There's a problem once we're in Sancre though. The bulk of the enemies are ghosts, which can't be hit by our iron or steel arrows. However, they can be hit by the 7 Dremora field arrows we picked up while closing the Oblivion Gates, and by our clan fear, so we're far from defenseless. The undead blades can also be hit by normal weapons, so if we'd absolutely had to, we could have snuck past the ghosts and just fought them. We're careful to trigger all the quest stages. Normally, I skip speaking to the first blade spirit because the conversation is long and boring and the quest proceeds after we free the other, less chatty spirits. But this time we mashed through his conversation instead because I've noticed skipping it causes the barrier to Tiber Septim's armor to do damage even after it's dispelled. Or maybe something else causes that, I'm honestly not sure, but we're doing everything we can to make sure it's fully dispelled this time. That's also why we waited a bit to approach the armor after they dispelled the barrier. Thankfully we didn't take any damage, so we're still at full health. I didn't even have to reload once for this part. Miscarcand went mostly as planned. While there are many undead, they're all skeletons and zombies, so we can hurt them with iron and steel arrows. The goblins are a bigger nuisance because they're faster, particularly the leaping attack they use to close into melee range. While we took out most of them with one sneak attack, a goblin skirmisher proved to be much tankier and caused a reload when he closed in before we could summon our clan fear. That was the only hiccup before we reached the Lich King though. In most other fights we were able to find a walkway above the enemies or a shadowy nook where they had trouble finding us. The Lich King, however, delivered the first hit I think we actually had to load back for when one of his lightning spells melted about 3/4 of our health. Unfortunately, the zombies that ran in from the staircases on either side of the platform we started on kept us from standing and sneak attacking the Lich King, and we were forced to skirt around them and head down into the pit around the platform to buy time to take them down. For all their flaws, zombies are tough and our clan fear always focused on them first. I would have preferred he get the Lich King out of the way while we dealt with the zombies. Thankfully, once our clan fear turned its attention on the Lich King, it was able to pulverize him quickly, and we only had to dodge a couple spells. I've been loading back when we're hit, in part to appease my perfectionist mind goblins, and to see if I can pull off a no damage run, admittedly with reloads, but the battle for Bruma is a chaotic mess at the best of times, and in past runs, our summons frequently turned on our allies due to the malicious tendency to riddle them with arrows, and Martin's insistence on spamming an AoE frost spell that hurts our side as much as the enemies. We're not safe from the malicious arrows or Martin's magic either, by the way, and that's before we consider the enemies that'll be pouring in. We stay back and summon our clan fear just to try it, and somehow that works. The militia didn't do much since our clan fear did an amazing job of keeping enemies from reaching them, which is preferable to them shooting everyone so we couldn't summon. Joffrey and Boris fought a fair bit, but fell as Daedra began pouring in faster than our clan fear could mow them down. Shortly after the third regular Oblivion Gate opened, things broke down, the militia got involved, and the cries of murder started shortly afterward. I don't know if they shot Joffrey, Boris, Burd, or one of their own, but that should tell you how often they hit allies instead of enemies. However, they didn't hit us or Martin, and we were able to dodge around a Dremora that closed in on us as we ran into the Great Gate. Of course, that isn't the end of things. Normally, closing the Great Gate is a breeze as we dart across the lava and sprint up the tower, healing through the damage we take along the way. This time that's not an option, so we had to find our way to the tower without touching lava while keeping the enemies at bay. We entered the side tower on the left, ran along a walkway while dodging the fire spit at us by the siege engine, and went down another side tower to a broken bridge with a clanfear runt on the other side. We tried to remove the clanfear runt, but it had way too much health for us to waste time picking away at it with our bow, so we dropped to the ground instead. Then we almost got stuck in the level geometry while trying to find a way forward that didn't involve lava, and we entered a cave I don't think I've ever been in before. Unfortunately, we got hit by a firebolt from a stunted scamp when we got stuck on our own clanfear in the cramped tunnels. I really wish we'd been able to afford the hands of the Atronach, because then we'd have fire immunity between them, our base ring of fire shield we got from Raven, and our innate Dunmer fire resistance. But thankfully the game autosaved when we entered the tunnels, so we didn't lose much progress. We made it through them without issue on the next try and found ourselves staring at one of the gates we usually jump around to make our way into the Sigil Tower. We were able to at least pull off that part of our usual shortcut, although we had to be mindful of the nearby fire turret and the Dremora. Our clanfear took care of them once we made our way around the gate. Inside the tower was easier for the most part, as we had a clanfear summoned at almost all times, but there was one tricky bit in a hallway with a bunch of guillotines in the ceiling. We pulled the lever to trigger them early, but had to be careful when ducking underneath them as they raised up, as they could still hurt us if we brushed against them. On top of that, there was a tough Dremora on the far end of the hall, and of course he saw us before we were past the traps. We didn't have a clanfear with us because summons don't navigate traps well, so we had to frantically summon it while dodging the Dremora and not brushing against the traps behind and in front of us. By some miracle, our clanfear appeared in the nick of time and got the Dremora's attention, allowing us to slip past the last trap. Things went well from there, and we took the Great Sigil Stone with 4 minutes to spare. That's probably the most of the usually generous time limit I've ever had to use. The last major hurdle is making our way through Paradise and defeating Miscarcand. Most of the Daedra at this level are clanfear runts, which are dangerous due to their speed and forward lunging attack, but our stronger clanfear deals with them easily. We also take out a few in the caves that can't find us in the darkness. We also accidentally shot Eldamil and skipped the first conversation with him, forcing us to fight the Dremora to continue, but he doesn't hold it against us and removes the bands of the Chosen when we find him again. The fight against Mankar was another one I was worried about, and we picked the Atronach sign largely due to the massive amount of magic thrown around by Mankar and Bruma during this fight, but it turns out we needn't have worried. We took out Ruma and Raven first. They'll respawn, but it bought us time to fight Mankar alone for a bit. Maybe Mankar lacks summons at this level because he didn't use any, and without another target to distract it, our clanfear cornered and squashed Mankar before Ruma and Raven respawned. Now we just have to get Martin to the Temple of the One. It's trickier in this run than most purely because I'm trying to stay damageless, but I finally remembered to use the Arcane Well Greater power we got from the Atronach Doomstone to boost our spell absorption, and it triggered at least 2 more times. Once we were outside the palace, we ran for it as usual, and thankfully the enemies were too distracted by Martin, Akado, the Legionnaires, and our clanfear to go after us, allowing us to reach the Temple of the One and proving, yes, you can beat Oblivion without healing, and you can even do it without taking damage. Granted, we didn't do it hitless because we were hit by 5 or 6 spells, we just didn't take damage since we absorbed them, and we loaded back at least a dozen times, so I won't claim this was a show of skill on my part. It was more stubbornness than anything else, plus a really overpowered clanfear I don't think the devs thought we'd be able to summon at this level. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that run. If you did, then please consider leaving a like and subscribing if you haven't already. It really helps the channel. Memberships are also a thing if you want to support the channel further, get your name in the credits at the beginning of challenge runs, and get access to new runs as soon as they're uploaded, usually a few hours to a few days before they're available publicly. But regardless of all that, thank you for watching to the very end of the video, and I'll see you all next time, not for an Oblivion challenge per se, but to answer a question that's been bugging me for a bit. How high can we get our skills in Oblivion without leaving the tutorial?